Unless you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and now here's your host, Rich Barris.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit, of course. If you are watching on YouTube, of course, give us the likes. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But on Rumble, subscribe to Rumble, of course. Give us those little pluses. And when you're there, right over here, all right? We had an election last night. Right over here, get not only exclusive content, you sign up to Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. You will drive election coverage come November, which isn't cheap, but we have big plans, and I think we absolutely can do it by the membership growth that we have had, not only this year, last year as well. All right, so getting into that, sign up. Don't forget, we are almost, speaking of Locals, we are almost we're off to the races on the latest public polling project. It's been basically less than a week since I put the new form up, and we are over a third on our way to our goal to fund that project, so we can get back in the field, get new generic ballot data, which I think is very important to get at this moment. After we saw Texas last night, it is critical that we get back into the field in March, sooner rather than later, and get some new data. Because we last week spent a lot of time talking about alternative realities with some of these pollsters. And I see on Twitter, only Jim at Susquehanna, and by the way, thanks for the retweet on that, Jim, is pushing back on some of what is clearly bogus polling. If you are YouGov and The Economist right now, shame on you. The Morning Consult, Politico, shame on you. Anyone who doesn't have a significant lead for Republicans right now, or did last week or 2 weeks ago, you should just stop polling because you suck. Last night is very clear. Republicans are far more motivated than Democrats. Republicans are getting far more independent participation and attention than Democrats. Can we now just stop with the nonsense? If, by the way, you polled the gubernatorial election in Texas and you had Beto O'Rourke within striking distance of Greg Abbott, stop polling. You suck. You're embarrassing us. You're an embarrassment to the industry. And why is it only me and Jim Lee and myself calling out these people? We can dispense now with the single-digit leads for Greg Abbott. Low single-digit in some of the polls I saw, a week ago. We can dispense now with the light red shaded maps of the fake forecasters. Larry, with your tiny crystal balls. We don't need any polls from the University of Virginia, which you paid Reuters Ipsos to do, which is like among the partner with Reuters and hired Ipsos to do, which is among the worst, least accurate pollsters out there. We don't need any Greg Abbott's +2 out of you again. Texas, on everyone's model as of last night and this morning, should be red. Dark red. Republicans outvoted Democrats nearly 2-1 in the Lone Star State. Nearly 2-1. They elected, very appealing, female Hispanic candidates all over South Texas. We're going to get into them in much more detail. One of them advanced to a runoff. She is very likely to win that runoff, and she will put that seat in play. If the year is as bad as the good pollsters, the accurate pollsters, seem to show it is for Democrats, all 3 of those seats will go. I've been screaming about Texas 15 for 2 years. More. Finally, some people are getting on the train. That's great. It's now a likely GOP pickup. It is now that we have the new boundaries. It is a district that is about 84, 85% Hispanic. And yet Donald Trump carried it in the new boundaries, and Republicans did not. They needed to do something wise, like elect appealing America First Hispanic candidates, or any America First candidate could have done it. I mean, a white guy, a white billionaire from Queens, New York, carried that district. But they were wise, and the voters in South Texas picked the Trump candidates across the board. The best thing that could happen for Republicans, and I'm not saying this to say anything bad about Henry Cuellar, is for him to lose, is for Cisneros to defeat Henry Cuellar, or at least force him again to another runoff. 10 more votes, and he will get an outright win. But that is where Democratic participation was actually the highest turnout-wise. Not raw vote turnout rates. Why? Because Cuellar is basically a border-strong Democrat. He defended Donald Trump on immigration for 4 years. Democrats sick the FBI on their political opponents. That's what they do. He has been persecuted now for those positions. And he almost was defeated. Early vote came in hard for Cisneros, and the later early vote and the election day turnout, which is traditional Democrat Hispanics that are now shifting in droves to the GOP, they came out in force for him. And I kid you not, made up like a 50-point deficit from the early vote initial results. So if Cuellar is defeated, many, I'm tempted to say the lion's share of his voters will go to the Republican Party. He is the last remaining Democrat in that area that is strong. Maybe he doesn't see it in his own primary, but that's because his own party wants to go towards fascism. His own party wants to go towards statism. His own party wants to go against family values. His own party wants to go against religious values. That is not going to fly with Hispanics in South Texas, and it isn't. If you didn't read the New York Times article yesterday, I wouldn't give the New York Times a click for nothing. But because of some people that I know and respect their opinion, they said, listen, this time they got it right. You really have to check it out. So I read it. If you didn't read it, you should. Because this time they did get it right. And if Cuellar goes down, the party is done in that area. The Democratic Party got bludgeoned last night. Bludgeoned. Republicans, in some areas, in some counties, the early vote exceeded primary records. They broke primary records in some of these counties. How did they do that? With new voters. That's how they did it. And enthusiasm, which you need in order to get those new voters. But this talk about Beto O'Rourke being competitive with Greg Abbott, it stops today. It's over. Over. Done. Yes, Greg Abbott had some problems with his base. But against Beto O'Rourke, gun-grabbing Beto O'Rourke, they will come back to Greg Abbott. Even though they're mad at him for being a rhino, which he was on COVID. Being more concerned about the border of Ukraine sometimes than he is concerned about the border of Texas. All right. So let's take a look at some of this, actually. All right, where do we want to go first? We're in Texas. I want to talk about what happened in Wisconsin. I also want to talk about some new polling. I want to talk about the State of the Union. I want to talk about Democrats' attempt to pass an unfettered abortion bill. This is like, it's like they're trying to give away South Texas. They're trying. And by the way, again, I want to give credit again to Jim for calling on APOR to sanction some of these people. The idea, and he was particularly talking about some poll, I always tell you this, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. There are too many polls and not enough pollsters. Who the hell are these people who come out with a Krispy Kreme plus 12 or some ridiculous number over Ron DeSantis? Did you look at their electorate? It was outrageous. Democrats couldn't get 40% registration in Florida if they, never mind, I'm not going to say that. If they fudged them. Florida is an increasingly red state. When Barack Obama barely won re-election against Mitt Romney, or barely carried the state of Florida against Mitt Romney in his re-election, which he did win pretty soundly, Florida was a 67,000 vote margin. That's it. Tens of percentage points. And that was a good Democratic year. At that time, Democrats had an over 500,000 registration advantage in the state of Florida. Right now, Republicans have the registration advantage, and they are carrying independents. There is no freaking way Governor Ron DeSantis is going to lose that race. If you are a Democratic voter or donor, give your money someone else. Val Demings is not going to beat Marco Rubio. None of this is going to happen. The state is moving to the right, even in pro-Democrat years. Republicans still won the statewide races, all but won the Agricultural Commission, which, by the way, that's why Brenda Snipes has lost her job, because she stole the Agricultural Commission seat, and everyone freaking knows it in Florida. That's the reason why Brenda Snipes finally lost her job, because Big Sugar matters. When you, the voters, scream about voter fraud, you're just crazy. When Big Sugar is pissed, Republicans act. And I hate to say it, but it's true. Ron DeSantis came in because he knew that could have been him. And we just got tired of the games. So he gave her and Linda the axe. Miraculously, the Republican margins in Broward County and Palm Beach, Miami-Dade too, miraculously, they just skyrocketed. You mean to tell me Republicans don't get 18% of the vote in Broward County? Wow, it's just news to me. And by the way, Texas, they have similar problems. So before I get into anything, okay, I just want to say that Abbott absolutely should get rid of Isabel Longoria. I'm not saying, look, at best, this is incompetence. At worst, it's something more sinister. And our country cannot keep having these incidents. Like, the elites look at them like they're not a big deal. You know, there was an issue with this, there was an issue with that. The American voter thinks it's unacceptable. You have seen our polling on it. Election day deadlines are supported by huge majorities in this country. This idea that Longoria and Harris County could not comply with the new laws is a total BS excuse. And just to tell everybody what is going on, they had problems with the size of, the ballots. Really, though, there are thousands of mail-in ballots that are being flagged for rejection because they did not comply with this new law. What is the problem with making sure that you administer your election the way that every other county does? What is the major problem? Local election officials say an unexpectedly large number of ballots lack newly required ID information. Voters have 6 days after the election to correct their ballot. That's outrageous. And why does it happen like this in these areas? The idea that she couldn't ensure that her voters knew that they needed to verify their identification before casting a mail-in ballot is garbage. You will watch how many of these are ultimately rejected because their harvesters and their activists are not going to be able to fix some of these mistakes, many of these mistakes. And to the voter nationally, forget about the state of Texas. To the voter nationally, this is not acceptable. If the state of Florida, with 14 million voters, can count their ballots by 9:30 at night, with existing in 2 separate time zones, then they can do it too. Then Harris County, Texas can do it too. Then all of them can do it too. It doesn't matter if it's incompetence or something more sinister. We're at a critical point in this country where it's essentially akin to the powder keg analogy. We have one more incident, and January 6th is going to look like a picnic. That is the truth. That is reality. So do your damn job correctly or get the hell lost. Only in politics can you suck at your job and still be a pollster. Only in politics can you suck at your job and still be a supervisor of elections or a superintendent or a county clerk or, in this case, an administrator. The rest of the world has to perform at a satisfactory level in order to maintain their employment. What the hell makes these people special? Or why in hell did they expect to be given special considerations? They're not special. In fact, they're below special. That's why we have these problems, because they're dumb and they're incompetent. And this has got to stop. So, moving on to Henry, there are absentee ballots and provisional ballots left. He is, like I said, I'd have to check. We partner with the decision desk, like the decision there quicker. Last I looked, he was like 10 votes shy of winning an outright majority. Here's the problem. It's unclear whether later early voting is going to favor him or not, because he did much better with the traditional election day voter. And those who voted most early voted most against Cuellar. It is possible that the later early vote is favorable to him, because that started to happen later on through the night when we got some of the later absentee ballot votes in. But for the most part, election day votes closed that gap. So we will just have to say, all right, it's up in the air. Again, the best thing that can happen to Republicans is for Cuellar to lose. And I don't mean that to be nasty or to say anything bad about him. I think it's very hard to be a Democrat and be pro-border security in this time and in this, this age, this era. It takes a lot. They'll sick the FBI on you. By the way, I'm making a call right now. Joe Manchin, if the Democrats lose the Senate, they will start to engage in political lawfare against Joe Manchin. And we'll talk more about him in a little bit when we go over the abortion bill. But there are already whispers from people who think that Joe Manchin deserves some sort of scrutiny from law enforcement. Because, why? Do they have any evidence Joe's doing anything wrong? In fact, Joe turned down the other Joe when he tried to bribe him for votes. When President Joe Biden attempted to bribe Joe Manchin by giving his wife a job, he turned him down. All right. So let's get on to what we saw here. Let's start with, again, the governor's race, a total wipeout. It's that simple. There's not much to talk about. It was a total, complete and utter wipeout for Democrats. Their turnout was not great. And this is the thing that really is going to give people problems in Harris County. We already knew what the early vote totals were in Harris County. And if they don't jive with what Longoria brings in, or over the next 6 days, a lot of people are going to start making comments. and they will be justified, because even in Harris County, Republicans outvoted Democrats. Even in Harris County. So if these votes come rolling in later and they're vastly different and there's more than expected since we had the numbers, it's not going to go well. But like I said, again, you can take off, and, Greg Abbott would probably be pissed, with me saying this, but you can take that race off the table. That is over. Beto O'Rourke will not be elected the governor of Texas. To even entertain it is dishonest at this point. And before somebody, like I said on Twitter yesterday and on Locals and Getter, before somebody lobs some garbage about the independent vote could break for Beto routine, it barely broke for them in 2018. They just got a lot of their votes out. It wasn't in the governor's election. They didn't really break for Democrats. They did in the Senate race and still lost. In 2020, Donald Trump's share of the vote didn't budge at all, because despite some of those suburban voters going to the Democrats, he rocked it in South Texas among Hispanics. His vote share didn't move. It moved 0.1 of 1 percentage point. That's it. I simply don't see how in a pro-Republican environment, this Republican environment, how independents in Texas are going to make up Beto's deficit. It's a pipe dream. The rating, the appropriate rating for the state of Texas, is at best likely, if not safe, Republican. I would probably, I don't know, if I punched it into the model, 89 up to 89 is likely, it would probably, considering the rest of the variables in the model, you have the generic ballot polling showing the national mood. You have the historical voting behavior, which is more important than any of the polls, by the way. And then you have the environment we're in. That alone has to put it in the high 80s percentile. So likely could be 75 to 89. It's probably, the needle, if it wasn't solid, would be teetering on like 88, 89. And by the way, Laura, back me up here. We invented the needle. We just didn't have the unlimited resources at our disposal to make it move like theirs moved, and make it as cool. They didn't. They had a very cool web design team who came in and stole the needle from us. Our needle was powered by high charts, and it had to be updated by a spreadsheet that was connected to the high charts graphics, which we had to do. They have a JavaScript program that has predefined variables. And that's why they have to change those predefined variables, because their modeling wasn't good. It wasn't. But they had to change them as time went on. But the JavaScript did the calculations. So a human being isn't going in there and changing them like Laura and I did. We would go in there and we would say, this much of the vote is in, the needle's going this way. And the needle was static for the election model until something changed in that model to move the needle, which we would manually put in. All right. That's a really good question, but people aren't going to buy this. The vote yesterday is very clear. Democrats are about to get wiped out in the Rio Grande Valley. And that's not going, what is that, supposed to trickle up ballot and Beto's supposed to help that? This is all very stupid. He's going to suffer because he's not viewed as one of them outside of very few places in El Paso. The rest of the Rio Grande, all the way in South Texas, is going to vote against him. They're going to vote very heavily for Greg Abbott. Republican in general. And by the way, when we talk about some of these districts and what happened in South Texas, it is very possible that Republicans take a clean sweep of these three districts. Texas 15, which you have known about if you are a viewer for a while. Again, roughly 85% Hispanic now. Donald Trump carried it under the new boundaries by a few points. Republicans failed to carry it by a few points because they didn't pay any attention to it. They took one look at 83% Hispanic and ran for the hills. Not the candidates. I'm talking about there was no national effort to win those voters. And it's a shame because a little nudge would have put them over. They would have gotten a 14th that night. This time, Republicans were smart. And they nominated America First, Trump-endorsed, fantastic candidates. Mayra Flores in Texas 34 can take that seat too. Texas 15, we know, is going to go. Dela Cruz is going to win that seat. It is more likely than not that Texas 15 is a goner. But Flores can carry 34. And we'll have to wait and see what happens. And Flores is running against Vicente Gonzalez, who has been barely surviving. And he's out of time at this point. Hold on. Let me grab a little trusty chart here. Yeah, here we go. So they were both endorsed by Donald Trump. Cassie Garcia has got to advance to a runoff, but she's got the advantage. So let's assume, I'm waiting to make pronouncements about 28, but let's assume Garcia wins the runoff, which I think is very likely, of course. If it is a night like we are seeing in the Emerson poll, in our polling, in Rasmussen's polling, in at Trafalgar's, the ABC News poll, for crying out loud, the ABC News Washington Post poll, which is jointly conducted by those two outlets, they had Republicans plus what, 12? Somebody re-up, maybe even 14 or something. And the electorate they still had is D plus 1, which I think is a Hail Mary. After last night, the electorate's going to be, let's call it R1 to R4. I'm not kidding. And it really could be a complete bloodbath. And if it is on the, more on the side of the spectrum that leans even more pro-Republican, like some of these polls have showed, what were we? I think we were Republican plus 7 last month, right? Rasmussen was plus 9. And then for a while, Trafalgar had leapt out to about like 12 or more, something like that. It's possible at this point because we had Republicans with an even bigger lead the prior month. I can't wait to get back in the field to see it. If it is anything like Republican plus 7 or above, those 3 seats are gone. Goodbye. Even with redistricting. And this, what I saw in Texas, strengthens my belief even more, which was I already was very confident in, that some of these areas in California that maybe are difficult for Republicans to hold, they can and have a better chance to hold than they would have thought. Like, I'm writing off some people. I am. David Valadao, I think, is a very difficult task. Mike Garcia has a very difficult task. It can be very hard for those two to hold on. But then you have the other locals, you saw the charts I'll show in a bit. An area like California 13, I've been screaming about for years. And Laura, we got to get David back on the show. Because that generic ballot just flipped in our polling, which we are tracking right now. Last month, it was 45-42 Democrat. This month, it is 45 Republican, 43 Democrat. Now, it does depend who Republicans pick over there. In fact, some of them should just really consider getting out of the race, and I'm going to make a strong case for that in a bit, but I want to stick with Texas. I want to talk about the Attorney General's race in Texas. I got a lot of questions about this. There are things I know that I don't want to talk about publicly, but I do want, for a second here, to try to put this into perspective for people who maybe voted against Ken Paxton or believe some of the stuff they had heard against Ken Paxton. Right now, he's going to have to go to a runoff against a Bush. By the way, Bushes, you can't even take your state party back. You want the National Republican Party back? You want to purge the party of Donald Trump when your guy can't get more than 20% of the vote statewide in your state? Where your family has been holding offices for decades? Where your family was a two-term governor before they decided to run for 2 terms as the president? There was some goodwill there for Bush in the Rio Grande. There is, and we'll look at the map. But for the most part, I was rather unimpressed. And had Louis Gohmert not been in that race, Ken Paxton would have ran to a majority victory, and this would be over by now. But the Bushes are now going to sink in tons of money in an attempt to beat Ken Paxton as revenge for backing Donald Trump's immigration policies, being the first to sue or countersue when Democrats would judge stop every time Donald Trump signed an executive order they didn't like about immigration. Ken Paxton was right there to go to Fifth Circuit and say, whoa, this is actually a sane circuit. We're going to win here. So I'm going to attempt to take jurisdiction. And it worked. And instead of Hawaii deciding what happens on our U.S. border, southern border, and instead of the Manhattan District deciding what happened on the southern border of Texas, Ken Paxton would take those cases and overrule the national injunctions. I want to play something from Louis Gohmert because, I don't know Louis personally. Don has interviewed him many times, seen him around. I'm not sure this is really up to snuff about the man that he claims to be. But this is what the potential here in this race now, talking like this, will potentially throw this back into the Bush camp. And someone who has claimed to be a conservative for as long as Louis Gohmert and has been against the establishment like the Bushes for as long as he has, he seems to really be playing the heel here. Let's roll it.
So he hadn't been to any candidate forums because the truth is anything he says can and would be used against him if he lies about the affair or the getting her the jobs and all the stuff that came after. They'll use that against him to show he's a liar. If he admits it, then they'll say he's already admitted these crimes. So he couldn't show up at any of the candidate forums, and he didn't, and we had a televised debate Thursday. So Eva Guzman and George P. and I were there, but he's not there. So we'll see, but it's looking good. But when his 8 top people report him that he's committed crimes to the FBI, they agonized, they told him for months, you've got to stop this, because they didn't want to be out there complaining against their boss. But that's very serious. But like I said, one of them was one of the most respected Texas Rangers, and that's why he hired him and put him in charge of law enforcement division of the AG's office. That's David Maxwell. And David was part of a statement this past week saying, we're sick of Paxton slandering us. We did not lie about anything. He hired us, and he hired us for our integrity, and it's because of our integrity we had to report him.
Shameful. I find that behavior very shameful. It already was clear Louis was not going to win. George P., you're on the first name basis with the Bushies, Louis? Really? Let me take a few of these as they come. The affair thing. I personally don't care. I would never cheat on my wife, but I personally don't care what somebody's personal sex life is all about, and the voters really don't either. It's time for the right, certain elements of the right, to acknowledge that. You may not like that, but that's the reality. Nobody cared whether Donald Trump was sleeping with porn actresses. Nobody gave a damn. Nobody cared whether Donald Trump, used his role on Celebrity Apprentice to meet beautiful, young, attractive models and, whatever pageants he put on. Nobody cared. But with this thing with Ken Paxton, if you know people who know them, I was speaking to somebody that I don't have permission to use his name, so I'm not going to, but last night and this morning, he said if it's true, then his wife must be an Academy Award-winning actress. So I just don't see the line of this. Who's being helped by this? The Bush family's being helped by this. That's the truth. And as far as the FBI, couple things. One, he's talking about a case from 2015, ladies and gentlemen. It's a 7-year-old, essentially cold case at this point. There's no new evidence, nothing that anyone knows about. So what the hell is that? What the hell is that? He told Steve Bannon in his interview that he ran against Ken Paxton because of immigration and because of some of the things with COVID. He didn't think Ken did enough. What does that have to do with any of that? Thirdly, at this time in the Republican Party, conservatives and populists are awake enough now, because they stole that word woke, by the way. The left, they totally stole it and used it perverted it. But they are sufficiently aware of the corruption at the FBI. The right is sufficiently keenly aware that the FBI uses political lawfare to take out people that stand up to them politically, that stand up to the permanent government politically, that are against immigration, that are against foreign aid, things like that. The real things that make the permanent government allow them to self-perpetuate. And for Louis to use the FBI, to cite the FBI to Republican voters, I just don't see it. I don't understand his thinking here. He's doing the work of the Bushes. Understand that. He's doing the work of the Bushes. And if you look at where everyone's votes came from, Louis Gohmert carried some small conservative counties in eastern Texas towards really northeastern Texas, but let's call it eastern Texas. George P. Bush carried a few in West Texas and in South Texas. And then Paxton ran it up everywhere. It led everywhere else and would have carried majorities in a lot of some of vote-rich areas that he needed to get over 50 if it wasn't for, Guzman and Gohmert pulling that vote away, because there was very clearly two different kinds of Republican voters there. I just don't see the point here. Those kinds of attacks, they're exactly what Democrats want. They're exactly what the Bushies want. Then it really serves no purpose other than to help the Bush family take control of the state's top law enforcement office. Do you think if George P. Bush wins, he would be there for a next Trump term when Trump reinstitutes some of these immigration policies and then the ACLU runs to like a judge in Hawaii or New York City to get a national injunction against the president's order? Do you think George P. Bush is going to run to the federal courts in the 5th District like Ken Paxton did to make sure that liberal judges in Hawaii, New York, and California did not dictate the policy of the southern border with Texas? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He will let it fly. The Bushes don't give a damn about illegal immigration. It's an act of kindness, remember? An act of love. George W. Bush hasn't written enough books to tell you about how the family feels about stopping illegal immigration. I know you probably haven't bought or read any, but for the love of God, Google it. Look at a headline. I just don't see how it serves either the America First or more conservative, traditional conservative cause to be doing this. I don't see it. Anyway, very disappointing, frankly. Very disappointing. Especially since there's a lot more to this story. Believe me. A lot more. I frankly don't understand why Ken Paxton doesn't say it. It's not for me to say, because believe me, it's like that. It's one of those. I don't know why he doesn't bring it up. Because the truth be told, the voters of Texas, Republican voters of Texas, did in fact cast ballots for the Attorney General's race statewide without all of the information. All right. I'll leave it at that. If somebody gives me the go-ahead, I'll blow the damn lid off it. But I don't have their permission at this point. Yeah. This helps the Bushes. Right. Most of you seem to understand that. This is almost a little too coincidental. A little too convenient for Georgie. Yeah. I'm telling you, Natalie, if I get the go-ahead, I'll tell all of you. Very disappointing. Let me just say it like that. And then to invoke a man's personal life and to cite the FBI after 5 years of corruption being exposed at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, political persecutions of those on the right who are doing nothing but attempting to fulfill the promises that they made to the voters when they campaigned and were elected. I just don't see. I can't. I don't get it. And you shouldn't either, which should tell you off the bat that there's something else going on here, because that doesn't make sense. And believe me when I tell you, there is. There is. You think to yourself, well, damn, Louis spent 4 years trashing the FBI under Donald Trump. The hell is this? How do we explain this disparity in his faith in the FBI now? Well, there's an explanation. Believe me. All right. That's it in Texas. Bottom line. We'll have 6 days to let stuff trickle in. Cuellar's fate will be decided maybe even later today, because in somewhere like his district, I said 15, but you guys know what I meant. 15's on the mind, believe me, because I'm about to be vindicated after years and years. When a district's 80+% Hispanic, and you're like, Republicans can carry this district, and people are like, fuck, get out of here. And now it's on the cusp of happening. Forgive me for being jubilant and a little bit giddy and one-tracked, because I've been saying this forever. Now it's not only 15, and believe me, like I said, in a bad year, those other 2 are going. But that would leave, if Cuellar survives, that would leave him as potentially the only remaining surviving Democrat if he was to hang on. But there weren't that many problems with absentee ballots in that race. That's not really the issue here. The issue is Harris County with the absentee ballots. We will get late submitted, not late like it passed the deadline, but they were submitted later in the process. We will get them throughout the day, and they'll get provisionals, though I don't know that I'll have to ask the guys at Decision Desk whether we expect those provisionals to be counted today. I would say no, but those guys are pretty good at rooting some stuff out. So we'll see. But there could be a call today. And if that vote comes in and it looks like the initial results for the early vote, then he's got a problem. I don't think he could be toppled. He's not getting above an outright win. If it comes in and they're better for him, like the later early vote and the election day vote was, then he needs 10 votes. That's what he needs. 10. So interesting race, and we'll just have to see. I would suspect that those provisionals actually could be more favorable to him, but we'll have to wait. Time will tell. All right, moving on. I got 14 minutes before this. 14 minutes before the break. What do I want to go over here? Maybe I'll leave Wisconsin towards the end. No. Let's roll that now. Let's roll that now. Okay. So let me get my thing up here so you guys can see it. Oops, wrong one. Sorry. Wrong tab. Bear with me. You may or may not remember if you watch my show, which if you do, you'll remember. And if you're on Locals, you'll remember because I put a post on Locals the day after the phone call, or even maybe the day up later in that day. I told you that what was going on in Wisconsin was thus far the most serious effort to get to the bottom of what happened in the November 2020 election in Wisconsin. This idea that it was not only more than likely, really rather proven, that people declared indefinitely confined when they were not, in fact, indefinitely confined. I've showed you, if you've watched our voter analysis, and you're a member of Locals, you've seen the Wisconsin voter analysis reports from the modeling, and we've talked about that query, that parameter that excludes deceased and change of address flags, and how many active records of those were still on the rolls in the state of Wisconsin, and the fact that they should not have been active at all. This idea like, oh, well, it's a default address. Ladies, yes, there is potential for some of those. Somebody asked a great question about that. There is a potential for the clerk to just put in a default address, but especially when it comes to absentee ballot voting, ladies and gentlemen, if it's the wrong address, how did the ballot get to them? I mean, some of these excuses are just completely nonsensical. And here we have a former Supreme Court justice investigating what is going on in the state, or what happened in the state of Wisconsin. And the Wisconsin legislature is seriously, at this point, considering decertification. And I actually think that it's probably likely to happen. I do. Because the report, and if you listen to the testimony, the report absolutely makes clear that we had people claim indefinitely confined that are not legit. They have all of these. How big is this? It was like 150 something pages, Laura. Something that was huge. I didn't even have time to go through it all yet. But yeah, I mean, this bottom line is that there was somebody's right. You never know. The FBI, they'll start going after those legislators too. You never know. But yes, the bottom line is that he is saying we need to seriously consider doing this in the state of Wisconsin, because the absentee ballot drop boxes were one thing. The Center for Tech and Civic Life, Zuckerberg's plan grants, running in the cities of Milwaukee, Madison, Racine, Kenosha. I told you that Racine and Kenosha, everyone always wanted to focus on the Democratic areas. But the fact of the matter is, Zuckerberg saw opportunities where there were large shares of votes that he could manipulate. It's that simple. That he could give a disproportionate advantage to harvesters in these areas over other areas of suburban and rural type who did not get it. He also flatly accused Zuckerberg and this grant program of engaging in behavior that in Racine, Kenosha, Green Bay, Milwaukee, Madison, that constitutes election bribery under Wisconsin statute 12-11. It's very bad. The WEC is failing to maintain a sufficient accurate WISP voter database, as determined by the legislative audit. The cities of Milwaukee, Madison, Racine, Kenosha, and Green Bay engaging private companies in election administration in unprecedented ways, including tolerating unauthorized users and unauthorized uses of WISP private voter data. Under Wisconsin Election Commission policy, such sharing voter data that free would have cost the public $12,500. As the Racine County Sheriff's Office concluded, WEC unlawfully directed the municipal clerks. I told you about the clerks. What Laura and I found in the Midwest could not have been done without the help of these clerks. And that's why we immediately, and not just us, but the investigator that we hired immediately pointed the finger at public sector unions, because it seemed like there was like some kind of order given. And in these areas, people were either told, do this or turn a blind eye. It just simply wasn't possible without the compliance from the clerks. They directed unlawfully the municipal clerks not to send out the legally required special voting deputies to nursing homes, resulting in many nursing homes registered residents voting at 100% rates and many ineligible residents voting despite a guardianship order or incapacity. We told you. Unlawful voting by wards under guardianship left unchecked by Wisconsin election officials, where WEC failed to record that information in the state's WISP voter database, despite its availability through the circuit courts, all in violation of the federal Help America Vote Act. WEC's failure to record non-citizens in the WISP voter database, thereby permitting non-citizens to vote. Told you. Even though Wisconsin law requires citizenship to vote. And by the way, if SB 1 passed, or the latest version of it would have passed, the ability to have non-citizens vote would have been not only possible, but incredibly easy. It already is possible because they have this kind of thing that they can, put in place. They already have motor voter, which registers non-citizens almost automatically, or if not very easily, in some of these states. Blah, blah, blah. Yep. Unlawful voting by non-citizens left unchecked by the Wisconsin election officials, with WEC failing to record that information in the state's WISP voter database. And Wisconsin election officials and WEC's violation of federal and Wisconsin equal protection clauses by failing to treat all voters the same in the same election. This was another one of Barnes and I's biggest points. Bush v. Gore. You cannot treat different groups of voters, depending on ballot category, differently. Election day voters cannot be held to certain standards that indefinitely confined voters are not held to, or any absentee ballot voter for that matter. Equal protection, the 14th Amendment. Every voter must be treated the same. And COVID, or a pandemic, does not nullify state and federal constitution. Never did. Which is why all of these are being thrown out in court now. And why all of these are being deemed unconstitutional. The ruling in the state of Pennsylvania, what does that mean? It means those votes were not legal votes. That's what it means. There's no way around it. The media could try to dance around it all they want. I tried to explain this to people for months, 2 months before the election. These Midwestern states never really grew to early vote. They never liked it. Pennsylvania, they tried it a half a dozen times in the last 20 years, and it always got shot down. It was very difficult to cast an absentee ballot vote in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. And it certainly was not no excuse voting. It required a constitutional change statewide in order to institute it. It was not a power that the executive or any bureaucrat ever had. That is why we saw so many indefinitely confined classifications this time, when I'm telling you maybe a few thousand would be in a given. We found some elections where a few hundred were indefinitely confined. Couple thousand, sure. I mean, couple by a couple, 2, 4, whatever. 200,000 almost? No. Nope. And Wisconsin election officials and the WEC's violation of federal and Wisconsin equal protection clauses by failing to treat voters by the same. Right. He is accusing Zuckerberg of committing bribery and cites the statute to prove it. Zuckerberg used $9 million to essentially bribe local officials, which is what Robert Barnes and I told you that was from day one. That is bribery. It is bribery. It's against the law. The act itself is against the law, but the implications are also against the law. And what do I mean by that? The implications mean we're going to violate the 14th Amendment. The implications mean we're going to violate state statutes if we do what he wants to do. The drop boxes were an attempt to get around in plain sight ballot harvesting. And they were conducted in states where ballot harvesting is absolutely banned. And yet, they just slapped the moratorium on, threw the drop boxes everywhere, even though they clearly violated the state constitutions in if most of these states. In the Silver State, for crying out loud, it's on the books, and they just decided not only are we going to put a moratorium on it, we're going to do it in only 2 counties. And by the way, the taxpayers are going to pay for it. There are 3 laws broken right there. Let's listen to him.
We're now in the midst of 9 different lawsuits, all to try to find the answers that the people ought to have as a matter of course. So of course we're not done. With that teed up, at this point, I believe the legislature ought to take a very hard look at the option of decertification of the 2020 Wisconsin presidential election. That would not automatically
Madam
lead.
Chair,
Yes.
That would
that is
not
the
lead.
3rd time that the
I
crowd,
am
and
at-
I would ask that if it happens again, you clear the room, because this is not allowed in any committee
So
I've
much for
ever
the
been
people's
to.
help.
All right,
And I would appreciate,
I appreciate it, and I think that we are trying to keep it to a limit, so.
Judge Gableman, so much for the people's house. I told you this guy was a serious guy. I told you. And it's more than that. The questions that were asked were serious questions. And I thought to myself afterward, wow, that sounds like someone is really trying to get to the bottom of this. That sounds like somebody who really seems to get it. I think he knows where to look. I think he gets it. I don't think this is going to be a whitewash. I don't think this is going to be a report like Arizona where they didn't go the distance. And they didn't make it so clear that the media can spin it. Which the media spun what the report in Arizona said. They spun it up and down, in and out, left and right, all around. Not this one. And by the way, who the hell does she think she is? If they want to clap, they can clap. That's why he means so much for the people's house. Oh, are you offended, widow girl? Are you offended people are clapping because it's clear you lied to them? And they're getting to the bottom of the real big lie? Are you offended? Well, baby, need a safe space. Daycare's down the hall. Chump. So sick of this. You can lie your ass off to everybody for a year, but you get busted, and now I'm very, I'm going to ask that we stop that. I'm very offended. What about the people's offense? What about the offense of the voters? You are offensive, ma'am. You are. It's 1 o'clock. We got to take a break. Probably good. Something's about to slip, in case you can't tell. Something's about to come out. And I won't be able to reel back in. We'll end up on the cover of the Daily Beast.
And then I'll get in trouble for beating you.
No, you're just like the obedient misogynist, the obedient woman that's married to a misogynistic pig who doesn't respect female legislators.
And you brainwashed me to think.
Yeah, you know what? I'm telling you, the American woman is the most abused, especially the American suburban woman, is the most abused group of voters in this nation.
They are.
It's
an epidemic.
They are. Yeah. It's an. They are castigated as weaklings who listened to their husbands on how to vote in 2016, then heralded as the heroes of the Republic in 2018, reinforced in 2020, and now right back since New Jersey and Virginia, right back to being mindless drones who listen to their husbands when their husbands like basically give them the palm card before they head to the polls. This is just so ridiculous. It's not even funny. You're a liar, lady. Just admit it. You're a liar. You're getting caught. Suck it up. Suck it up.
I just love it though, because they are hive mind people.
By the way, did you see somebody use the term hive mind? Multiple people. I'm not gonna say who, but certain liberal journalists who are very critical of the Democratic Party, which you have to give them credit for, and a certain social media personality who is like 1 minute super pro-Trump, then super anti-Trump, then super pro-Trump, then super anti-Trump, then super pro-Trump, then super... I mean, it's enough to make your head spin. You really can't tell. He does that stuff on purpose, though, to be provocative. But the hive mind term is starting to catch on, folks. The hive mind. Hashtag hive mind. Hashtag hive mind. By the way, Public Polling Project was trending on Getter. Public Polling Project was trending on Getter, which is great because I didn't start it. Wasn't me. When I tweeted out, when I posted on Getter today, I saw it was because I had seen the hashtag trending a couple of days ago, and I was like, "Holy crap!" So I decided to slap it back up there. I hit the hashtag, and I think I got to like PUB, and it just came right up. I was like, "Son of a gun!" We had nice organic contributions to get this project going. If you haven't contributed, please consider doing so. If you have, share far and wide. Share far and wide. It would be great to have we'll have what are the odds on Monday, by the way. So that should give us a boost if we're not there by the end of this week. Because we did over a third in less than a week last week. And let's say we did another third this week, right? Or not even. By the time we get to what are the odds, then hopefully when we get to what are the odds, it'll push us over. All right. I'm going to take a quick break. All right. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. You can follow me on Getter at People's Pundit. Like I just said, you can follow Laura right on there at Laura Barris. She's in my profile. I'm going to give her a follow too. She's funny. Should have watched her on the State of the Union last night. That was funny, which we'll talk about when we come back. All right. And then among other things. And I want to read something too about Ukraine. I love the locals community. Somebody grabbed an article that I just cannot help but to share on the show today because, man, you guys are learning. You get it. Mm-hmm. You get it. And then so when you see an article with an interview like this, it makes sense to you now. And that's what this community is supposed to be all about. It really is. So follow us on Rumble. Okay, at People's Pundit on Rumble. And when you're there, right up there, you see the locals button. Sign up, become a member, supporter, even better, of the peoplespundit.com locals or peoplespundit.locals.com community, which will, of course, help us not only grow and get to a place where we can conduct a lot more polling, but we are in an election year. And I want our own maps. I want an API that goes to the show so when tickers are going up and down, maybe we pick 4 seats and it's actually not that hard. We just need to raise the money. The 4 seats for House, maybe we determine that rotate in and out for the clip. Another 2 seats or 4 seats in the Senate that rotate in and out. All right. We only have I don't want to put a number on what's competitive and what's not because At this moment, if Joe Biden's approval rating really is this low in these states where there are Senate races, then there's just no way the Democratic candidate's going to hold on. Everybody knows that. Joe Biden cannot have a 30-something% approval rating in the state of Georgia and Raphael Warnock expect to defeat Herschel Walker. Arizona, Mark Kelly's raising a ton of money. But there's just no way he can hold on if Joe Biden's 30-something% in Arizona. That's the way modeling works. Fake polls be damned. Fake polls be damned. All right, we'll be back in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Here's the bone bandwidth. Bad habit.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
And take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
And we're back to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. All right, follow me on Getter at People's Pundit. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe. If you don't subscribe, hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But we would very much like you to subscribe on Rumble to the People's Pundit Rumble channel. Give us those pluses, right? Whatever. Rumble ran over there. Don't give super chats are great, but Rumble rants are better. Why? Because I don't want to support YouTube. They don't support me. I don't want to support them. They take 30% of what you give me? Like, at least, right? 33, Laura says. All right, so, with that in mind, why do that, right? Support the Public Polling Project, right? Give it to the Public Polling Project. And that's it. And while you're there on Rumble, of course, sign up to the People's Pundit .locals.com community. peoplespundit.locals.com. You'll get exclusive content. We're about to build another survey. You got exclusive today or earlier in the week. You'll always get it first. All right. And you'll definitely help us build questionnaires. We have conversations about what the polls are going to be about this month. Right. And what's great about this model, by the way, is that even though obviously, because I always let the locals community take the poll, and it's always like, different from the scientific poll. It generally is the case that what you guys are thinking about is what the electorate is thinking about anyway. So we're always very prescient, which is why I've always been ahead of the curve. That's just true on other polls. But locals is making me even more ahead of the curve because I'm engaging with you guys and getting your input. And that is something the media doesn't know how to do, and their pollsters don't know how to do. So they're always behind us. Always. What we start to poll a month or two before, they start to realize is important, several months later. And then the quality of the polling is simply better. It's that simple. My critics like to throw around all these smears. The fact of the matter is, I know you have to go to bed at night being inferior to me.
Yes.
It's true.
Amen.
It's true. It hurts really bad that I beat you in Virginia again. It hurts really bad that our 2020 polling was so much better than yours. It hurts really bad that our 2018 polling was so much better than yours. It hurts really bad that our 2016 model and our 2016 polling was so much better than yours. And it hurts really bad that our 2014 model that debuted was so much better than yours. Now, to give you some comfort, it is a statistical certainty that eventually I'm going to be wrong. It is not, however, statistically certain that I'll be more wrong than you.
How you like me now?
So while I may seem arrogant and cocky to people, rest assured, I am.
No, correction.
Only
only
to those because, look, there's nothing left to do but to shame them. There's nothing left to do but things like the Public Polling Project, which is what I was talking about during my speech at Hillsdale. You'll never beat them in this narrative war. They have too much money, and it shouldn't be a narrative war anyway. It should be a truth war. You know what I mean? It should be a competition. Who could provide more truth? Who could provide more accuracy? But they have perverted it because they're perverts. And that's what perverts do. They pervert things. So all we can do is shame them by being better and by being more transparent, making them look stupid. Why can I get all of this information at the Public Polling Project? Why don't you give me this? Why don't you nest variables? Why don't you give us regional participation and distribution data? Why don't you do that? Why do you seem like you made like something like on a 1990 version of Microsoft? Right? What good is that to me? You know what? I don't think I trust this because it doesn't give as much information as I get from the Public Polling Project. That's the goal. And truth be told, that's already happened. It's already happening. We just need to bring it to the largest number of eyes that we could bring it to. They want it.
Just put them on, Richie.
Just put them on.
See, when you're that accurate, you gotta put shades on because that's how
put 'em
cool
on.
you are.
The star is shining so bright. I'm blinded by it. Get out of here. Get out of here. When that Hillsdale speech comes up, I know some people have been asking about that. It was live on my locals channel. If you caught it, if you want to see me trash some people, boy, you'll see it in that speech if you didn't already. I think I used the right amount of spice and the right amount of seriousness, right?
Yes.
But for those who didn't see it, I'm clicking it every day and trying to get it. As soon as they send it to me, I'll get it for you and I'll put it up. All right. Because that live link that I gave you goes right to the next live event, which is kind of cool. But there's no way to grab it unless you're watching it at that moment. You grab it. A couple of tidbits that we didn't get to on Friday when we came back about that Hillsdale trip. Got to ask Ron DeSantis some serious questions about positions. Let's say Trump doesn't run in 2024, all right? Because he's not done. Look, folks, I hate to break people's hearts if you're big DeSantis fans. He's not going to run if Donald Trump runs. It's not the smart play anyway. Trump is going to win. Everybody knows it. All right. Trump is going to win. His play should be take the VP spot, which everybody knows he's going to get. Trump can't serve the second term. He's too old. All right. Maybe this guy will be trucking it forever, but likely that wouldn't happen. So somebody would have to be the heir apparent, and that would be Ron DeSantis. He would get elected, probably in a landslide, and then reelected to another term. So he'd essentially be 3 terms in the White House in some capacity. And he'd also be a Donald Trump heartbeat away from the presidency as vice president, which is not the same as a Joe Biden heartbeat away. Let me tell you that. But it's still something to consider, and you got to take all this into account when you're looking at your political future. So I had to know about certain immigration and certain trade things. And on trade, he has some baggage. All right. There is some concern because when he was in the House, he wasn't exactly America First on trade. It was widely believed that he would probably vote for TPP. All right. So all of this came down to it. But a lot of people were transformed legitimately under Donald Trump. And I think it's very clear from listening to him, not just listening to the words a politician tells you. First of all, Laura, he's not like a politician, is he?
No.
He's not. He's a dude.
He's a cool dude.
He's a cool dude.
Laid back.
Really
nice.
Cool dude. Very, very laid back. The lieutenant governor was there. Half the damn cabinet was there.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the whole government of Florida was in that room.
I just have to say, only DeSantis could pull off a full suit.
I know what he's
and some cowboy boots.
He was definitely rocking cowboy boots.
I loved it.
With a gray suit and a red tie, I think, right?
No, blue suit.
Blue suit and a red tie.
But all I have to say is we're going to have to buy a summer home there.
Yeah, I know. One day, love, one day. Soon. He is legit.
Mm-hmm.
He's the real deal.
Genuine.
Look, I've heard the words spoken to a lot of politicians, and he's not one. He doesn't. Of course, he served in the House, so it's like, yeah, he was a politician. Then he ran for governor, but he doesn't talk or think like a politician. And the reason, before I get into specifics about what he said about trade, why he's able to fight and stay on the offense, he said, too many people, and even colleagues that he knows and he likes, they care too damn much about what the media says about them. And I tell you this all the time. This should sound very familiar to you. They care too much about what the media says about them. They simply, have their eyes glued to Politico or whatever. Mm-hmm. Even the local news. He doesn't give a damn what they write. He legitimately doesn't give a damn what they write about him. So all of those attacks during COVID, for instance, he didn't care. He didn't listen. He knew what he was doing was the right thing and that he was ahead of history. And eventually those, whatever reports were bad for that day, were going to look partisan and ridiculous and just incorrect, factually incorrect at some point. So if you want to do this job, he said, you have to really understand that you're never going to be popular with these people. They're never going to like or respect you. And that you have to just stand with the people and go forward. And particularly talking about the transgender thing, which because we had polling on, I was interested. Transgender competitions that hurt girls, young girls who are scholarships for college, right? That was a no-brainer for him. He knew he was on the right side. He knew the people of Florida were with him. The people of the nation were with him. You remember those margins. Mm-hmm. They were more than 2-1 in some cases.
But now it's a novel concept.
But now
follow your constituents.
Right. So he feels like he generally has a good grip on what the people of Florida elected him to do, and that he's not going to let Fauciism or bureaucrats or their friends in the media dictate otherwise. They don't represent the majority. He said it, and he's right. And Jason from Wall Street Journal said the same thing. These people are just really loud, and they just have control of these institutions. So they give this false impression that that's what the people want, and it's not. And he's right. But on trade, basically, you cannot win like Donald Trump did. You cannot win Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio. All of these, there are some states that would swing back considerably if Republicans went back to the Chamber of Commerce version of Republicanism. Ohio's plus 10 because of Donald Trump. Iowa's plus 10 because of Donald Trump, not because of Republicans. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Trade is a big one. And, the issue of tariffs, free trade versus fair trade. He said, I think it's important for the Republican Party going forward to understand that we have a country before we have an economy. Not that he's sacrificing the economy at all. What he means is we are a country, not an economy. And decisions that are made with trade policy have to put that country first. The economy is coming second. Also noting that all of the Chicken Little, the sky is going to fall reactions to Donald Trump's tariffs did not come true. The economy did not crash. Inflation did not skyrocket. None of that actually happened. Those were just Chicken Little naysayers in the Wall Street Journal and everywhere else trying to talk down what is possible. And that's tragic. But he clearly made it clear, that a lot of people had some conversions, had some differences, they thought differently after the Trump administration. And he's clearly one of them. It's an honest conversion, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
It's an honest conversion. It's not bullcrap because the man's thinking of his political future.
Oh, no.
It's not.
He's analytical.
He is.
Like,
he's
he
a
looked
lot.
at a
Yes.
situation. He realized
He went to Yale. I mean, people think like DeSantis is stupid or something. Or he's not like a deep thinker. He's a thinker.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely a thinker. Is he Aristotle? No. But I mean, he's a thinker. He's not what the media wants you to think he is. Not at all. Not at all. He's intelligent. Mm-hmm. And he's got spine, which Larry Arnn, the president, was like, this is rare.
Thing.
This is freaking rare.
The president loved DeSantis.
Yeah, he said he's probably the most important elected person right now. And it's probably true.
Well, because they both did the same thing. Hillsdale was the first college to say, no, we're not going to bend to these things.
Yeah. And because they didn't take federal money, they didn't have to.
They didn't have to. And then DeSantis was like, no, I'm not going to listen to you because my constituents say no, they want to live in free air. And so it's like everybody wants the same thing, really. The majority wants the same thing. But they are all reluctant to be the first person to do so.
Right.
And
that is what he said too. He said that. He actually said that.
That's what I'm saying.
He said, and that's tragic.
It is tragic.
He said, don't get me wrong, I'm glad Florida led the way against the tyranny of Fauciism. I'm glad we did. But it's disappointing, that there aren't, this was a no-brainer. This was a no-brainer. And, the proof's in the pudding at this point. The proof is in the pudding.
But it's devastating for these individuals to come under, like DeSantis and Hillsdale College, to come under such attack.
Yeah.
Because everybody's afraid to feel being called a ist or a ism of some sort. It's ridiculous. And then that's where you give them power. So, it was very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Oh, I shouldn't have got
it. It was a beautiful thing, the coming together of both.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of common threads.
Yes.
Whether somebody was a governor of a state or somebody was a professor at a university or somebody was a columnist for the Wall Street Journal and a biographer of another scholar or somebody was a pollster. There was just these common themes.
A lot of firsts.
Right.
That people
That's
that
right.
stood against the grain.
Let me just say to this one questioner who I believe was a super chat. I didn't see your post on PA's 8th, so before I comment on it, I'll look at it. But I'll find it on Locals, and I will respond. I'll look at what you're asking me to look at. I'll check it out. But I don't want to just you know me. I don't like to comment.
You like
on
their...
Yeah. What are we at? Where are we at? Yeah. Okay. Before we get into some of this, because time's really blown by, there are two things I want to talk about more before we get into, if I have time to answer some Q&As before Friday. One is I want to talk about the new polling in California 13, and then also late-term abortion polling that the Democrats, I want to reiterate. I mean, I know many of you, especially on Locals, you've seen these polls, especially on late-term abortion, but I think it's very important to show people, again, because factcheck.org, ATTN, PolitiFact, the USA Today. I put a whole slew on Twitter the other day all told the American people, both Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Democratic Party at large, were not for unfettered abortion. And you might remember that point in the debate in 2016 when Trump turned to Hillary and said, just admit it, Hillary, you want to rip babies out of the womb,
That's beautiful.
And she was like, oh, that's amazing. She's like, it's ridiculous. USA Today is like, false. Even though she had already told Meet the Press, George Stephanopoulos on Meet the Press, that no child that is unborn, developed or not, has constitutional rights until they are born. So somehow a baby needs to exit the womb. So by using that logic, and then of course people like Ted Cruz said, well, Joe Biden and all of them would take away the Hyde Amendment and you'd be funding this. They also said was false. Oh, they never said they were going to do it. Well, what the hell does Joe Biden do? What did he do? Hello? Of course they were going to do that. In any event, they all lied about it. And this bill they tried to push the other day, it's over now. This debate is over. Republicans should no longer feel timid or anything about engaging Democrats in the conversation of abortion. All right. And I did have a screenshot, but maybe it's just best to bring up the whole damn thing. All right. Which, yeah, let's do that. The Democrats are castigating Joe Manchin for essentially opposing this unfettered federal bill. They're trying to get out in front of the Supreme Court. All right. When it comes to the Texas heartbeat bill, the Missouri bill, right? They're trying to get out in Mississippi, excuse me. They're trying to get out in front of the Supreme Court's ruling and make a federal law that says abortion is protected anytime in the pregnancy. And I have argued that it's not going to help Democrats for two reasons. One reason is the abortion designation pro-choice is not at all dominant anymore. And in fact, we have found pro-life ahead of pro-choice here and there. This last poll that we did for the Polling Project was pro-choice +1. That's it. Basically even, well, within the sampling error. And the most compounding problem for pro-choice and those who think that engaging in this debate is going to somehow help them, the pro-choice designation no longer means what it used to mean. When people told you they were pro-choice in the 1990s, when Laura and I, were basically subjected to this stuff, that meant you basically viewed a baby as a blob of tissue. And it wasn't really until almost the end of the pregnancy that you would consider it a human life. Science was very backward back then. Science has absolutely damaged the pro-choice image, and they have harmed them even with their own voters. So when you ask someone whether they're pro-choice, they typically tell you yes, only because they are using very, very minimum circumstances. I'm pro-choice, but I only really support abortion when the life of the mother is at stake, when there's a rape, all of these ridiculous infinitesimal percentages of the vast majority of abortions that are committed in this country each year. The fact of the matter is the number one reason for abortion is basically because women are using it as a birth control backup. I'm sorry, but that's true. The Health and Human Services data is very clear. They just don't want it. It's an unwanted pregnancy. Somehow, I don't know, condoms, birth control, Plan B, all of that was like kind of just rather, what's the word, I guess, Laura, inconvenient for them. So, they're pregnant now because they didn't use their head. Shut up. Then they're pregnant now, and it's unwanted, so we're just going to go ahead and terminate this baby.
I'm sorry.
The other one used.
Yes, I got it. They didn't
Talking
use
about the
right
woman
one.
here.
The one with the
They didn't use their head. Yeah. Anyway, pro-choice, 43, pro-life, 42. But then when we cross by abortion designation, and we're talking about terminating a pregnancy within the final 3 months of a pregnancy, which is what Democrats were suggesting And actually, instead of using the crosstabs, I can show you a close-up version of this. It's overwhelmingly, it's a super majority that is opposed to what Democrats put on the table in the U.S. Senate a few days ago, which Joe Manchin voted against. He not only was with the vast majority of the voters of West Virginia, he was representing them, but he was representing the vast majority of the voters in the United States of America. Even 86% of pro-life oppose it, of course, but even 55% of those who told us they were pro-choice opposed it. So again, twofold problem with these. It's radical. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a radical leftist position. What was put on the it was viewed as barbaric by the rest of the world. Other developed nations do not allow this, ladies and gentlemen. They don't. There are big restrictions on abortions in many European countries, viewed as barbaric. Now that the science has advanced, it is barbaric. And this idea that you can just terminate a pregnancy in the last 3 months of development is only good for Planned Parenthood, because then they get more developed body parts to sell.
I thought the whole point was because their whole spiel was the baby doesn't feel it.
Well, which is BS, and we act
exactly.
well again. More problems on the science front for them, which we actually asked about too. Remember, after doctors determine a baby can feel pain, almost 80% pro-life. No, overall, the pro-choice movement, a third of them said that they were opposed to it. Only 37% supported it. 29% had no opinion because, again, I think that the media and Democrats have at least done a good job of hiding the science from a lot of people. So when someone who says they're pro-choice hears that, they're like, you know what? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. That doesn't sound right to me, but I'm not sure. We have done big, deep dives on the views on abortion in this country. And the fact is, the Democratic position is an extremely fringe, radical position. And the abortion industry is viewed in a very different light than it was in the 1990s. When once pro-choice, that designation dominated pro-life. Those days are over. They can't even rally their own designation. The heartbeat bill, remember that? 47 opposed, 32 support, including 21% of those who said they were pro-choice. So Republicans have no fear here. Have no fear. And Joe Manchin being, like I said, completely castigated over that vote was well within the supermajority of this country. Twitter is not real. Twitter outrage is not real life. And it's even less real life this year than it was last year because of the purgings and the censorship. It's an echo chamber of people searching for affirmations of their views. The minority is very loud, very vocal. Yesterday, some schmuck added me to a list, along with Jack Posobiec, by the way. He's a blue checker. I don't know why. He barely has any followers. He's not in the public interest. Apparently, he's got some celebrity friends and some, very liberal friends on Twitter. He added me to a list because I was talking about Texas. And I was also talking about the State of the Union. It was called Bad Faith Actors and Bots. Or no, Bad Faith Actor Bots or something. And I said, you're a coward. You're a coward, man. Be a man instead of a little boy. Someone that's offering arguments that breaks your brain and your worldview isn't a bot. It's a challenge. That's how a real American man would view it. But you're not. You're a little beta beat boy. And you add people to lists because you're too stupid to defend your own views. It's cowardly. Censorship is cowardly. Only cowards favor it because they're afraid to be able to compete in the marketplace of ideas. They're that insecure. Right. And they know it, though. Don't they really know it?
Yes.
So if they're for censorship, isn't it true that they really know that they're inferior,
Hence the woman that
insecure.
just spoke. Can you please
Isn't
stop
that true?
them from clapping? This is a second.
Yeah, right. This is the second time. Can you please stop them from clapping?
Kiss my
The hell do
face.
you think you are?
Put your big
These are the
girl
people
bra
that
on.
Leslie Nielsen made fun of in like the Naked Gun back in the day.
Yeah.
They like walk around in full body condoms, you know? We're not even allowed to make fun of them anymore like that because then they have like he would have been canceled for that spiel. He'd be canceled today.
Forget that.
Betty White, Estelle
Oh,
Getty would have been canceled.
Yeah.
Estelle Getty would have been done. And by the way, though, that did exist back then. Bea Arthur and Betty White did not get along on the set of The Golden Girls because Bea Arthur was a radical feminist who never liked Betty White's comments.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the jokes she'd make, she would faux outrage, like faux offense, you know? And it was a constant problem. The Golden Girls wasn't going to be canceled. Bea Arthur destroyed the Golden Girls.
Mm-hmm.
She was like the predecessor to, you know, like to this. Fantastic actress. Whiny as all hell. It's true.
It's true. That's most of them, though.
Poor Betty White. I won't even watch the Golden Girls anymore now that they're all gone. I just don't even want to see it anymore. I really don't. My daughter loves it.
Mm-hmm.
Loves it.
We did.
I had a grandma very much like Estelle Getty.
Yes, you did.
She cooked like crazy. She treated me like the little Italian prince grandson. She did.
Oh, he was such a grandma's boy.
Oh yeah, I was.
And
I won't deny it. Loved my grandma. God bless her. It's Ash Wednesday. She'd be running around with the ashes on today. Oh, Catholics. Happy Ash Wednesday. You know, it's funny. Even though I'm not a fan of the Catholic Church, I was born a Catholic, raised Roman Catholic, and I converted to Protestant. But as I'm waiting to go on Steve Bannon today, I'm listening to Father Pavone. And I was telling Laura, first of all, I like this guy a lot. Mm-hmm. Number two, it's amazing how comforting, and it's like, you know, old habits die hard, right? And right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing how comforting when you hear what you know is a really good priest. And Pavone is a good priest, a really earnest man, faithful man, giving the blessing of Ash Wednesday and also explaining why Catholics celebrate Ash Wednesday and as we move in towards the season of the resurrection, the comfort that it gave me. You know, like, it's just amazing. I'm not even Catholic anymore, but it's in your roots. It's like in your DNA almost.
Well,
you know? And my grandmother was such a devout Catholic. She was such a devout Catholic. I mean, that woman, her faith was inspirational. You know? Mm-hmm. Like when she got too old to go to church, boy, if they didn't come to the house, woo! The diocese is going to hear about it. You missed me on Sunday. This is outrageous.
I think it happened once.
God forgive you. Yes, it happened once and then it never happened again. God forgive you. I can only pray that he will forgive you for leaving one of his sheep.
I'm telling you, you would feel like you were going to hell for
she
the rest
was
of your life.
amazing. Best cook in the world. Laura is amazing. Learned a lot from my grandmother. So did I. Yeah, when we first got married, I was the cooker. And now she killed it. She's way beyond me. Grandma would be proud, Laura. Grandma would be very proud. Yeah, but in any event, I digress. Let's move on because Texas, of course, yesterday, we wanted to see how the whole state, but everybody was really looking at South Texas to see what would happen. We have seen these shifts in South Texas. Speaking of Catholic, right? Enclaves. Seeing these shifts in South Texas. We've seen them in Florida. We saw them in Arizona. We saw them in Nevada. Many where we didn't see them, of course, was California. And in southern parts, Southern California, for instance, very different than some of these other areas. I have to make this clear to people because when we got the okay to talk about some of the findings, and I really want to show people these findings because there's a lot at stake here, okay? I hear a lot of people basically echo things that the left is dying to hear. You know, California's a lost cause. You know, they cheat so much. Republicans can't win.
I am tired of that.
Listen, if you want to roll over and die and play dead or just give up, knock yourself out. But the fact of the matter is, in the area we are showing you, they obviously didn't do it enough because Larry Elder killed it during the recall here. And this area voted yes to remove Gavin Newsom. The majority of the districts voted in the mid-50s or higher, and 2 out of 5 counties in these districts voted 60% plus. So this is an area, let's say they did cheat. It wasn't, they can't cheat enough, okay? Because this went against Democrats badly. And it's an area of California where we have been polling for so long now. We're very confident, since we saw that coming in the recall, we're very confident that we have a very good grip on the electorate in this area. And more, the Hispanic responses last night were incredible. Incredible. Mm-hmm. Among Hispanic independents, David Giglio trounced Adam Gray last night. Trounced him. But here's the thing. He's the only one who can put this race up against Adam Gray. Republicans have, what do you call it? A God complex? I need to save the party. I need to save the country, right? And these candidates, they're not good candidates. And they come around, and for some reason, they completely throw a wrench in the Republican chance to have a easy primary, which they can then use their money to spend going after the Democrat. Democrats really don't have this problem, not like this anyway. They do have someone like Phil Arbaio going against Adam Gray. Phil Arbaio views Adam Gray to be a corporatist, okay? And he is. He's endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce. David is not. David has the endorsements of Hispanic groups, Hispanic working groups, and certain irrigation people, stuff like. Adam Gray has all the corporate money. It's sad because a lot of Republicans are totally corrupt in this area, and the electeds, the activists, David's rounded up basically every endorsement countywide. But the bottom line is, there are people who are elected behind the scenes that would rather, they have that same defeatist view. I was just laying out with people who respond to me with like, oh, they cheat kind of thing. They horse trade. I mean, one of them even endorsed Adam Gray with the promise that he can have Adam Gray's assembly seat. This is the corruption.
This is how they think.
This is the corruption that is going on. It's disgusting. Joe Biden, again, for people who don't know, some people say 10, some say 12. I'll give it 12. Joe Biden carried this district by 12 points over Donald Trump if we were to draw the lines and calculate the vote, which we did. All right. He won it by 12 points over Donald Trump in 2020. This is a new district and it's an open seat. Last month, it was about 53 something to 40. So we were really close to the actual vote total. Yet Biden's approval rating was 45%. His disapproval was 49%, right? Let me check and double check here. Where is Joe Biden's approval rating? His disapproval last month was 49.7. All right. And the generic ballot was still nonetheless Democrat +3, which was in the sampling error, well within sampling error. This month, Joe Biden's approval fell further. Okay. It fell to, you know what? David doesn't care if I show this. Hold on. He doesn't. It's going to be slap an internal use only thing on it. But anyway, his approval fell this month to 43.1. 14.1 said they strongly approved. That's down from the prior month when it was 17.9. But this is remarkable with that his disapproval also increased to 51.6. This is remarkable because this month the sample is even more pro-Biden in the 2020 self-reporting 2020 vote share. So we have more people that voted or self-reported to voted for Joe Biden than last month, and yet his approval rating fell even further. The generic ballot reversed because as presidential approval goes down, it obviously weighs on the candidates of that president's party. Presidential approval rating is among the top indicators for predictive, with predictive value on how down ballot candidates are going to perform in a midterm election. All right. Last month, like I said, it was 45-42 Democrat at the end of December. This month, it's 45, or as of right now, we're tracking. It's 45.3 to 42.8, a Republican lead of 2.5%. Even though the sample was more pro-Biden in 2020 than it was in the last sample. And by the way, is it skewed towards Republicans at all? No. The breakdown after we did this was 40.2 Democratic, 32.4 Republican, 23.7 Independent, and 3.4% other third party. It's still an incredibly, it's a D+8, basically. Some, people, they shall not be named on the show, have the PVI in this district of really, or the partisan advantage in this district of only D+6. So I actually may have 2 Democratic of an electorate. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I don't wait for party ID. I wait for other region, age, race, gender, right? Geos. And that's what we get. But it is possible that I'm overestimating it. When I look at the raw registration, it looks like D+12. But then when you call these people or text them or email them, you just emailed a Democrat and they're calling themselves an independent. You just emailed a Democrat and they're calling themselves maybe even a Republican. You just emailed an independent and they're saying they're like a Republican, a moderate Republican. So it's fluid. And I think what's happening in this district, as the recall vote clearly suggested, is that there are a lot of disaffected Democrats, a ton of Hispanic independents who have traditionally voted Democratic in the past that don't want to this year. Here's the problem and challenge for Republicans. And I'm going to read exactly what I wrote, okay? Primary vote. The primary election vote preference. He's been campaigning in the majority of this district since last March, the better part of a year. So people know who he is, and he's had a lot of outreach to Hispanic voters. David Giglio is getting 21.3% in the jungle primary. Adam Gray is getting 30.2%. Phil Arbayo is a Democrat who challenged Devin Nunes. I would frankly call him a socialist. He is Bernie AOC left. He's getting 9.3%. Elizabeth Heng, who ran against Jim Costa in 2018 and actually lost ground from the primary to the general. She came within a few points in the primary, so the NRCC got involved. They threw a bunch of money at her. She blew it and wound up getting crushed. Somehow lost vote shares. That takes a real loser. I'm serious. To lose 15 points, to lose ground by 15 points from the primary to the general, you're a real special kind of loser. She wants to jump in this race, even though she's declared for 4 other races. She wants to jump in this race, and the party chairs had a call with her the other day and told her, we don't want you. And somebody outright said it, and it's true. Laura and I knew what it was. We were thinking it. Elizabeth's in debt from 2018.
Somebody needs to pay off her money.
She is willing to screw this race for Republicans so she can get out of that campaign debt.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a serious person.
It's actually quite disgusting.
It's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
She'd be ashamed of herself. Those who know her are voting against her. The only reason why she has the support that she has is from people who don't know her. And the other one, let's move on. Diego Martinez. This guy was convinced by Republicans who are endorsing the Democrat to get in because they got afraid that Arbayo and Gray would split the Democratic vote and that David would actually sneak right by and win the thing outright. They were terrified of it. So they convinced this guy, and I'm sure he's a nice guy, but he's an idiot when it comes to his, he's stupid. Let's be real. He's not in the district, doesn't live in the district. We're pretty sure his address that he used to file is a lie.
Yeah.
But he's got no money. He placed 31st in the recall. It's a pathetic vanity campaign. These people talked him up, and he doesn't realize he's been duped. That he is somebody's What's the word?
Lackey.
Lackey is a nice way to put it. He doesn't realize that he was recruited to siphon votes. That's it. He's a lackey. Matt Stoll, a fighter pilot, neocon, who's pro-choice. He doesn't live anywhere in the district either. Has no name recognition and only has $100,000 that he gave to himself. They're all getting crushed by Adam Gray. Why? Because you can't win this district without reaching out to those Hispanics. They don't care what your last name is. I spent 2 years with a Hispanic construction working focus group. Both Democrats and Republicans think that somehow Hispanics vote on last name alone. Do you know what the consensus is? First of all, it's racist. Right. And Diego thinks his last name is going to earn him the Hispanic vote. I kid you not. Do you know what the focus group told me? It was really a makeshift focus group. I like doing this sometimes. That they left people. They left countries where all of the politicians had Hispanic last names. I couldn't believe my ears.
It was beautiful.
They thought it was utterly racist to even think that, number one. But number two, why on earth would we leave? Why on earth would we come here and look for the same thing that we left? And the focus group was basically of people who just are now eligible to vote for the first time. Some of them, most of them were. Some of them were able to vote in 2020. Yeah. And that's just a complete misnomer. And it's not borne out by the data. Republicans have to pull their act together here. Or, they really do. They have to decide which way they're going to go. Texas, great job. And not because they're Hispanic candidates. You picked America first, non-establishment, non-politicians, because the politician thing is a negative for these voters. They don't like politicians, especially those they view as opportunist seat chasers. Like Elizabeth Hang, didn't you run already? How many races have you declared in? They don't like that.
What place did you come in?
Matt Stoll, he's running in a special that's nowhere near this district, and then he intends to come over here and run in that district. I mean, they hate that stuff. Adam Gray is actually rather weak because he's viewed by them as like a corporatist, just like Arbayo. What Arbayo's, the left-wing candidates, attacks on him, that is actually how Hispanic voters view him, which we found to be very interesting. Anyway, look at these margins. Elizabeth Hang, a prior candidate, 52.2 to 30.4, she's getting crushed. Diego, who thinks he's going to win the Hispanic vote because his last name is Hispanic, 50.7 to 31.9. Even though the generic ballot is R2.5 right now. Matt Stoll, 49.3 to 33.3. He is the best among the worst, only because nobody knows who the hell he is, and he's taking advantage. He's getting some goodwill, I want to vote Republican support. But they don't know who the hell he is, and once they find out who he is, that's going to go down with Diego and Hang. Because Hang and Diego actually do have some name rec. Not much, but they do. And among those voters who know them, they can't stand them. This is a show. And I blocked it.
It's a circus.
It's a circus. Vanity campaigns. Democrats don't do that. Phil Arbayo is running against Adam Gray because Phil believes, he's a true believer, that Adam Gray is a sellout, crackpot, corporatist dirtbag. Look at his attacks on Adam Gray. He blocked Adam Gray from getting the California Democratic Party endorsement because you needed a certain percentage of the county endorsements, just like, Republicans. And his campaign got on the ground, called in the AOC nut crowd, and they blocked him. They did it because they believe it. They're true believers. You can say what you want about him, but he's a true believer. These other schmucks who are getting in against David Giglio, they don't really believe that they're a strong. These are vanity campaigns. And this is not the only district, but it is a perfect example of this district. This district is a perfect example of what Laura and I have seen Republicans do to each other
time and time
for
again.
over a decade.
I mean, I've never seen.
Tell them because.
Really, Republicans are great at screwing themselves. They really are. That's where I'm at right
so
now.
True.
I mean, if you truly care about your constituents that you're running for, you will say, this guy has the money. This guy has been campaigning longer than me.
Yep.
And he has the name recognition, and he has more, what's the word?
Money, more name recognition, more support, more grassroots support.
Than I do. So, you know what? I'm going to back out. And I'm going to put my money where he is. But you don't see that.
The only ones we saw do that this year, Laura, are true America Firsters.
That's
right?
different.
And then we don't have to say any names, but people we had talked to about the potential for them running. And because they looked at the field and they said, you know what, maybe somebody can carry this torch higher than me, brighter than me. They could do a better job. I'm going to step back and I'm going to let that candidate do it. These people, that's not what's going on here. Because they're not what? If they really were America Firsters, if they really were all caring about the party and caring about the valley, they would leave.
Instead of their PR or book deal or debt that they're trying to pay off.
Last night, that's right. Last night, a Trump-endorsed candidate, two Trump-endorsed candidates in Texas, this happened to. And the fact of the matter is does it serve the purpose now that they have to spend more money to win because they had crowded lanes? Cassie Garcia could have turned her attention to the Democrat in Texas 28. That's one of the harder races for Republicans to flip in Texas, right? In southern Texas. Cassie will need all the money in the world. All the money that she can get, all the help that she can get to flip 28. But now because of seat chasing rhinos, she has to spend more money to win a runoff. Ken Paxton. Because two people, decided that they were going to take some of his vote away. He's going to spend more money defeating a Bushy instead of running against the Democrat. And in this case, when you're looking at these numbers, folks, these numbers say they have no chance. They don't have name recognition enough to fix this. This is close to the margin that Hang lost by. And she's about to do it again. Why? What reason? And when told by everyone on the call, nobody wants you here. You're not going to raise any money. You're coming here and screwing it up for the candidate that's been working his butt off for a year. You should have heard this airhead. I really think that I'm the best candidate. I'm the best. I really think I care about the valley so much. I care about the valley so much, guys. I kid you not. And finally, one of the chairs was just like, this is bullcrap. You're in debt and you're doing this to pay off debt. It was hilarious. Just call a spade a spade.
Yes.
Just call a spade a spade.
I loved it.
I mean, statistically, ladies and gentlemen, when a candidate is near or above 50%, it is almost impossible to turn that around.
The candidate would really have
the only one who has gray in basically against David Giglio, Adam Gray's ceiling is what the generic ballot is for Democrats currently. That means it's a real race. If you are losing 50 or above or close to 50 when the generic freaking ballot is R plus 2.5 right now, you're a horrible candidate. A loser. You're a loser. And they're doing this for their own self-gratification. They're vanity. It's vanity.
Somebody just said that. I was like, that's the word.
Self-gratification or vanity?
No, vanity.
These are vanity campaigns. And the stuff that some of these Republican candidates had to deal with in Texas in 28, they were vanity campaigns. 34 too, by the way. It's just that she got over the hump. This is crazy. I would like to say that the Attorney General race was vanity campaigns, but it's not. There's something far more sinister in play with that. I mean, maybe Guzman was. I don't know. The Bushes are always for their own vanity and power. But, I mean, this is nuts, and it's sad. You won't see this there will be some times when you'll see Democrats do this, ladies and gentlemen, but fact that, it's far and few between. And for the most part, the reason why somebody like Phil Arbaio would run against Adam Gray is because Phil is a true believer. Adam Gray is a sellout. He's a crook. He's a politician, a typical politician, and he doesn't care about the working class. See, Phil is a left-wing populist, so that's what he would like you to believe. I mean, really think he's a socialist. I mean, that's it. But he has left-wing populist undertones. And, that contrasts to David Gillio, who's a right-wing populist. So that would be an interesting head-to-head. David is beating. That's another thing. David leads Arbaio. The rest of them are down to Arbaio. So you could go from having a seat Republicans are ahead in the generic ballot to actually electing a left-wing nutcase. That's how badly Republicans blow opportunities. And Laura, how long have they been doing this?
Oh, forever.
Forever! Since we've been in politics. They do it on
good.
purpose. They would rather that happen than an outsider
Well, 'cause
or
they're crabs
somebody
in the
who's...
pot, Richie.
That's right. It's crab in the pot, Laura.
They
We've
have
been
the-
crab in the pot
It's
theory.
like, how dare you do
One
that
person
here?
gets the cross. Yeah. One person is almost out of that pot before they all get boiled.
Mhm.
And another crab, a fellow crab, grabs him, hooks him, drags him
No
back in.
freedom for you.
If we're going to boil, you're going to boil with us. Very much the same thing.
So sad.
It is sad. So there's that. And we're going to be talking a lot more about this. Barnes too and I on What Are the Odds. A lot of people have said they want some guidance, on some of these decisions, and Robert and I have decided to do that. And when we see instances like this, we are absolutely going to blow them up. Because there's this like Messiah syndrome. That's what you called it. You said it was like a Messiah complex. Where, and that's true. I think you're right about that. Where it's like
everybody wants to be the savior.
everyone wants to be the savior.
But nobody wants to be an apostle.
Elizabeth Heng, I think, is just trying to pay her campaign debt.
Well,
But the
I know
other
she
ones,
is,
they
yeah.
want to be the Messiah. Stoll is an aspiring politician. Very good. You are a fighter pilot. We're all very impressed. You don't live anywhere near the damn district. You have no name recognition. Nobody wants a neocon in the Republican Party at all. You think the California 13 wants a neocon? Do you think a 54% Hispanic district, 53, 54%, working class Hispanic, do you think a freaking neocon can win that seat? A pro-life neocon? I mean, a pro-choice neocon?
Yeah. I was going to say, you got to fix that.
What the hell are you talking about? It's absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. And that's one. There will be many more we will talk about, believe me. All right. Real quick, I just want to say about the State of the Union before we go. Joe Biden's State of the Union bombed. Like I said on War Room, it's not subjective. It's objective. I mean, it's not objective. It's subjective, right? So the bottom line is we can measure this. CNN, not exactly a right-wing pollster, found this was the worst received speech since George W. Bush gave his 7th State of the Union address during a very, very unpopular war and an oncoming recession that crashed the economy. That's how bad Joe Biden did last night. And he did so because all of the same schmucks who surround Barack Obama surround Joe Biden. And they did not take my advice that I said yesterday before the speech, which was very simple. Joe Biden is not Barack Obama. And Donald Trump is not hated like George W. Bush. So this playbook of simultaneously plagiarizing somebody, while plagiarizing their policy and pretending to be them on policy, while blaming them, your predecessor, for everything that went wrong with your administration, was not going to work. People gave Barack Obama the benefit of the doubt because they liked Barack Obama personally. Joe Biden isn't liked personally or on a matter of policy. He is a very unpopular man, and he never was popular, by the way. All right? He's never going to be popular. There's no way to turn this around. His presidency is effectively over in the minds of most American voters. He is not viewed as legitimate by too many people. Too many. And now we're looking at the product, this disaster, and people are saying to themselves, this is what happens with illegitimacy. And I'm serious. He looked weak, he looked fragile, he looked frail. Nothing about that they can change. And people are busy. They're not stupid, which is what I said on War Room. Somebody quoted, put it up. The American people are busy But Democrats too often, and Republicans too, both parties do it. Politicians too often make the mistake of confusing what I called in our virtuous republic, I called it rational ignorance. They're not dumb. They're just too busy with their lives and survival and family and everything else. They're not political junkies like us. They're not constantly following the stuff like us. But they're not stupid. And once something becomes apparent to them, when you try to lie to them, when you try to tell them that all is right when they know it's not, when you try to take credit for a vaccination program you had no hand in, they know it. We've polled that before. Rasmussen's polled it. Trump gets credit 2-1 over Biden. People know Donald Trump did Operation Warp Speed, which could prove, as we were talking with Steve, could prove one day to be a liability to him, which is why I said don't ever tout that shit. But he did.
Yes, he did.
And the bottom line is, that isn't something that Joe Biden can take credit for. They know that the problem at the pump didn't start with Ukraine. They're aware he removed the Keystone XL pipeline. They know he ended fracking in areas, went after Iran war, and on and on and on and on. Anyone with a brain can look at the CPI index and see it started under him, not Donald Trump. And on and on and on. I mean, the issues are endless. I don't see Glenn Kessler typing up the fact checks, by the way, when he lied about vaccine immunity being more protection than natural immunity. That's simply not true. The CDC just released that a few weeks ago. 6 times more protection against Delta than vaccine immunity came from natural immunity. And now all of the early indications suggest that it'll be even worse for Omicron. And he lied about that. Bill Clinton, say what you will about him, love him or hate him, he had this instinct about him that was incredible. And sometimes a little bit of humility and honesty will go the long way with the American people. And he used to have these come to Jesus, mea culpa moments. And he'd say, you know what? We fell short a little bit here. But together, we're going to work harder and we're going to hatch this thing out. Bear with me. And Americans could say, you know what? I respect that. What Joe Biden did last night is make a grave error, grave miscalculation his team made. That somehow that goodwill that they had harnessed for Barack Obama was going to somehow carry over to a bitter, old, nasty, senile old man that nobody believes anymore is up to this task. For all intents and purposes, the country wants Donald Trump back. It's true.
No, there's voter remorse like no other.
Between 4 and 10 points is the man's lead. It is hard to overstate. It's hard to overstate because we're in an era where I would have argued a year ago, and I still will. I think Trump's his own phenomenon. I don't believe Republicans, unless, well, maybe because of the Hispanic shift, that's going to change that calculus. But very difficult moving forward for Republicans to win the popular vote. That they have the advantage in the Electoral College if they keep the Midwest, but very, very difficult to win the popular vote. If this Hispanic shift that started under Trump continues, then that will definitely change the calculus, and we'll have to revise that thesis for damn sure. Because that's who's growing in this country. White liberals are not growing. They don't even procreate. I'm serious. Their fertility rates are abysmal.
Don't tell them to.
All right. So, and by the way, who terminates pregnancies more than anybody else? So their only hope was to bring more people into the country that are an underclass or what they believe to be an underclass that would vote for them. What if that backfires on them, ladies and gentlemen? What if they imported a bunch of people who have values they don't share? I think they're starting to get that, which is why Joe Biden plagiarized Donald Trump's policy last night over and over and over. All of a sudden, Joe's a made in America man? Are you kidding me?
He was made in China.
Now he wants us to be energy independent. He's the one who squandered energy independence. People know this. Will there be 20% who are overrepresented on Twitter and on social media, who no matter what you tell them, their brains are broken and they'll continue to spew this garbage over? Yes, but they are not reality. And in the real world, Americans absolutely know that Joe Biden squandered our energy independence, which is why 60+% of the American people told the Harvard-Harris poll that if Donald Trump was still president, Ukraine would not have been invaded. Because Donald Trump is not weak like Joe Biden, and because he had us in a position of leverage, where we had leverage. They're not as stupid as politicians want them to be, the voters.
Well, this is why we're suffering what we're suffering right now. This is why we're going through. Because you showed them that you were not.
That's right.
And now you're getting spanked like a bad boy and girl.
And they're trying to like revert to like the 90s version of the Democratic Party. He tried to do that last night. It was really weird and dishonest. By the way, if you missed Lou Dobbs on War Room this morning before I went on, you need to listen to that. Because man, he took it to him. It was disgraceful. Yeah. The line was disgraceful.
He said there was one actual statement which made me laugh, was when he said that we're following other countries closing down our airspace.
Yes.
That was hysterical.
And imposing no-fly zones. He said, we're following the lead of other countries and imposing a no-fly zone. And then Lou Dobbs said, damn, finally something true. We're following them.
That was
instead of leading them.
And
the dishonesty in that speech was egregious.
Yeah.
And Trump used to like tell fibs, but it wasn't like central fibs, central truth fibs. Like he would like say something incorrectly. Like I even hit him over how he talked about absentee ballot voting before the election. He had the general concept right, but the specifics were very wrong. Yes. And they would hit him on that. They would hit him on stuff like that. And the Washington Post had their Trump fact check tracker, right? Their lie tracker. Joe Biden didn't say a damn thing, to my mind, other than what Lou Dobbs pointed out. That was factually true. All right. And Americans are going to know that. So not only do I not think that it helped the Democrats yesterday, but I think people like David Axelrod and others aren't as dumb as they want you to believe. They're not as dumb as they sound, like David's tweet. It's hard to list a laundry list of accomplishments. Many other presidents have done it just fine. But he said, it didn't move the needle. You're wrong, David. I believe it did move the needle in the other direction that you were hoping. Because you can't lie to people like that to their face. You can't do it. Republicans found that out the hard way in 2018. We're going to repeal Obamacare. You cannot make big. He should have just simply said, I made big promises. Nobody foresaw all the variants coming. Instead, he's like, we're going to have a vaccine 3 months after a variant emerges. The hell are you talking about?
Within 100 days. Within
100 days. By 100 days, as we all know by now, that variant could be on its way out. So what he really is saying is that he's going to give a never-ending revenue supply to Pfizer. That's to put drugs in your system that are outdated forever.
And then
that's pointless. He should have just said,
we
learned. Yeah, that. Oh my God.
Lord,
and the Ukraine thing, pretending like he's defending Ukraine. They have the one person that they could find that they could, point the cameras to clap. Everyone on Twitter from Ukraine was flipping out. You son of a, how dare you? You're gonna leave people behind like Afghanistan. That after that debacle in Afghanistan, you have the nerve, the audacity to make a statement like that. So again, people aren't stupid. It's endless. I could go on and on and on. The major thing that you need to take away is sometimes that can work. But unfortunately for Joe Biden and his team, he is not loved like Barack Obama was, and Donald Trump is not hated like George W. Bush was. So they made a grave mistake. Yes, last night. And this idea that it didn't move the needles, you better rethink it, because I think it did in the wrong damn direction for them. All right. So with that, it's 2:15. I'm a little bit over, but I wanted to do that. Yep. Let's see. What else we got? Let me just not forget my announcements here. We're going to start doing, if you bought merch, shoot us like a support message or something with the merch thing. We would love to see that. You guys rocking your merches, and tell us whether or not we'd be able to show them, because we would like to be able to do like a little segment of people wearing their merch and showing it on the show. If you don't, we won't share it, but we'd still like to see it. That would be cool. The merchandise link, the Accuracy Matters one. Is the Inside the Numbers campaign still up?
No, I didn't.
You can't keep multiple. Oh, you didn't like.
Yeah,
well, we're gonna come up with some other ones too. But the Accuracy Matters one, which turned out to be my personal favorite so far, Laura was right, just because of the People's Pundit font, the custom font, just looks super cool on the back. It says Accuracy Matters. People's Pundits on the front. The hoodies are really dope. If you still live in a part of the country where it's still cold, the V-necks, they're cool. The regular shirt's my favorite. Well, in the shirt category. And then there's regular sweaters, no hoodie. They're cool. Again, the kids and everything want them. They're very cozy.
And the shirts fit me. T-shirts are fitted.
Yeah, the t-shirts are fitted. So
go a size up.
Go a size up. Yeah, if you want it loose. Yeah. See, I don't mind wearing my mediums like a little tight. I don't care. I kind of like it. So yeah, I kind of like it. Yeah, once upon a time when I had pecs.
Hey, you still hot?
Don't worry, I'm getting them back real soon. That People's Pundit's gonna be bouncing up and down.
Oh Lord have mercy.
But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my daughter loved that. She thought that was hilarious. The best thing. Do it, Daddy, do it. Right? Remember? Yeah, so anyway, get them and send them to us and let us know whether or not we can show them, because that's really cool.
His pectoral muscles,
yeah, pectoral muscles. Come on. Anyway, there's that. So yeah, the link's in there for both Rumble. It's in there. I believe it's on Getter too. It is. In the live streaming on Getter. And locals, you know where it is. It's pinned, I believe. It's pinned. All right, so check it out and take a picture, send it over to us, have somebody take it. You can do a selfie if you have to, but have somebody take it if you can. Shoot it over to us with a little bit of a caption. Yeah, you can use it or no, you can't. Either way, we'd still love to see it. I'm going to do like a little segment of people rocking their People's Pundit merch, and that would be cool.
Because I like to make a portfolio, just a book for us, like memories.
For
when we get a
and even later too. Like I said, if they say we can do like a little running clip or something during a commercial break or something. Cool. We have some ideas to make commercials like better than just playing the song, and I don't want to like spam up our commercials. I don't mind running some commercials, like, I wouldn't mind running Getter's commercial or something like that. Speaking of which, follow us on Getter at People's Pundit on Getter, and in my profile you'll find Laura's, because you had to spell the last name. All right, and then of course, don't forget before you leave, whether you're on YouTube or you're on Rumble, to like the video if you liked the video. Subscribe to both channels. And when you're on Rumble, get exclusive content, early content, embargoed content, peoplespundit.locals.com. All right, I think I got it from there. Friday, we'll be back with the Q&A. Don's got some really cool stuff to tease. Had a great week, had great interviews. Don't want to miss that. And there'll be a lot more to talk about when it comes to these elections. There's a lot more to sift through right now. All right, we'll see about the implications of it. Share the public polling project far and wide. We're doing incredible. I think we even had a bump even during this show. We are over the 2/3 mark, in excess of it. Oh my goodness, we're almost at the halfway point, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, we just went from a little over 33% to halfway almost. We're at 2,815. Very damn good, man. That's awesome, guys. Really, really awesome. And I think we're going to talk about different ways, different coverages and what we're going to do for the midterms as well. That conversation we got to start having on locals. All right. So with that in mind, I'm kicking rocks. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to follow us. Leave you with bad habit. You got something to say real quick? You look like you're chomping at the bit.
In the world.
Oh, I love this girl. See you on Friday, folks. Stay cool.
Deuces.
Stay safe. Deuces.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. possessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife. So give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette.